But what I want to try and suggest is that not the detail of what's done in sustainable development. I think that the practice out there can contribute, but often does not directly contribute to sustainable development. But the principles of CLD, etc., are ones which are just absolutely fundamental to communities really changing in a sustainable direction. Let's just say what the values of community development are. This is a declaration issued at a conference of the International Association for Community Development, similar to the one, no, I think it was just a European one. The World Conference is happening in Glasgow in June. If you've not seen anything about that, look it up. It's quite an exciting opportunity. And the Budapest Declaration in extracts says that community development is a way of strengthening civil society by prioritising the actions of communities and their perspectives in changing social, economic and environmental policy. It seeks the empowerment of local communities. It strengthens the capacity of people as active citizens through their community groups, organisations and networks, and the capacity of institutions to work in dialogue. It has a set of core values covering human rights, social inclusion, equality and respect for diversity. But it also has a specific skills and knowledge base. So a broad vision, something which is both a social programme, not just a service or a way of changing the world, but also it's something that you can have a specific skills and knowledge in doing. It talks about how CLD can contribute to this big national agenda of prevention and getting in there before the costs happen to reduce social problems rather than picking up the pieces afterwards. But I think you could just change that and say CLD and sustainability. These are some of the things that this approach has got to contribute to sustainability. By its ability to build an in-depth understanding of people's needs, strengths and aspirations through sustained dialogue, identify issues and solutions at an early stage, identify barriers to participation and strategies for overcoming these, mobilise and support direct participation in planning and service design, and enable community organisations to develop their infrastructure. So that's in there. It doesn't say sustainability, but I think if you think about it, that's exactly what we're talking about. Community capacity building is deliberate action, i.e. you've got somebody from within or out with the community going in and taking action to make sure that everyone has the chance to deliver that outcome, which we've already seen a moment ago. And it also says that this is something that involves bringing people together to discover the interests or issues that create common links, building effective and sustainable community organisations and enabling everyone to take part in them on an equal basis. And we do comment it can go under various names such as community development. It's talks about social practice in community-based adult learning, but the managers have adopted and said this is our understanding of what the community learning approach is to adult learning as opposed to what a university or whatever might do. And there are about 6 or 7 or 8 key features, but to look at 2 ones. Key feature 1, the learning provider has a clear understanding of the social, economic and policy context of the learners, potential learners that are being targeted. You don't just recruit heads to classes, you go into a situation and you understand it and what the needs are and you respond to those. Key feature 3, the learner and provider have a shared understanding of the changes that you're looking for, whether it's the learner's life or the life of a group or a community or indeed the planet. And there are other principles about the active involvement in your own learning and the quality of it and everything. But those I think are absolutely, when we're talking CLD, we're talking about a view of learning which highlights this context and the context of it can be local, can be global, I think, and that's another starting point. On youth work, I've just put this up. There is a draft National Youth Work Strategy out for consultation at the moment, I haven't quoted anything from the sort of principles of that because it does have a specific paragraph about learning for sustainability, so I thought it might be interesting to draw that to people's attention. Youth organisations are key partners in taking forward learning for sustainability, outdoor learning, sustainable development education and global citizenship, as we saw earlier. Learning for sustainability aims to build values, attitudes, knowledge, skills and confidence. So again, that does go back to very much the basic, getting in there and building people up, their own confidence, their own skills, to develop practices and take decisions which are compatible with a sustainable and equitable society. As I say, I haven't got a list of local solutions, but I thought just very quickly as an aid to discussion, some of the areas and the many areas that these values can be applied in, but when we're particularly talking about the community building side of things, and you could add many things to this, I'm sure, but it's all about supporting community action, basically, whether that's aimed at green spaces, as it very often is, food, growing, energy recycling, but also the asset ownership and management, development of social enterprise, regenerating your community, understanding its needs, and understanding how health, your community and society affects your health and well-being, all fundamental, and loads of examples of work around Scotland aimed at all of those. And without implying there's a total distinction, just thinking a bit more about both youth work and adult learning, because essentially they're taking very similar approaches to different ages of people. Again, people could add loads to this, but all sorts of work which is about actively involving people in the environment, training them in skills or volunteering in the natural environment. Outdoor education, clearly we've had several presenters who have very strong records in that. But also thinking of this social practice and what matters to people. I've been discussing this at the table with the WAA. Is talking about weather and climate, is that something which engages people? Yes, they say it does. Learners can get involved in that, even if they're picking up basic skills along the way. Actually, people are interested in this. And before I came here, I was going to say that using that kind of issue as an aid to wider learning was something I hadn't seen many examples of. I knew about their earlier project, but now I realise they have got the toolkit which anybody can use. So I don't need to look for too many other examples. Go out and use the WA's toolkit and use climate issues as an aid to whatever form of learning you're doing. Skills for community action obviously relates back to the previous thing, and learning for global citizenship. The CLD strategic guidance, I referred to this. Important thing for present purposes is that this starts to get people saying that there's got to be a strategic approach, looking at and this is then reinforced by the regulations which came in last year, which is the first time there's been any Scottish legislation which in any way says that you should be doing this stuff. And there will be a need for, technically for local authorities, but for partnerships to come up with, to assess the needs, and it should be understood as being across what I've been talking about and more. Some might focus more narrowly, but they should be thinking about what community capacity is needed, what issues are important, and what we can do to facilitate that, and coming up over the next 3 years with strategies. As I'm sure you're aware, there has been a consultation on a draft Community Empowerment Scotland bill. There will be, I think they're aiming maybe around about June to get something to Parliament. First of all, it's not just about asset ownership, it's about asset management. It's about a whole range of options that groups could take to do deals on public assets and manage them. You know, if they don't want to take over the building or the piece of land, they could get a deal to run it as a community garden, whatever it might be. But the one which tends to get less discussed, because it's difficult to get your head round, could be quite interesting. It's this thing about a right to request that community groups can get involved in delivering outcomes. Okay, a right to request, but a right which can't be reasonably refused. So it's got a little bit of legal teeth. And just think about it. these local planning partnerships and so on, they have their outcomes there about sustainable development, about what they want to achieve, or it could be biodiversity or any of these issues. Community group comes along and says, hey, we've got a role to play in this, we want to be involved. It's not necessarily about taking it to a legal thing. We had a conversation with Derek Mackay, the Minister, and he agreed that success would be if you didn't have to use that. But it's on the agenda that there should be an assumption that communities have the right to participate in delivering these things. So lots of hooks there, I think, to hang your local work on is all I'm saying. Thank you. I'll close at that.